Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This session is about 1 hour late, but still I want to show you as much as possible of this topic. My name is Andrzej Samsonowicz. I work for Autodesk in office which is based in Warsaw, Poland. By the way, it's one digression. I just read in a newspaper that your Turkish Prime Minister came to Warsaw, to Poland, to celebrate 600 years of interrupted diplomatical relationships between Poland and Turkey. So it's pretty unusual. Okay, well, back to reality. I will be showing you a software named Dynamo. Who of you have ever heard about Dynamo? Okay, great. Who of you have heard about Grasshopper? Perfect. Who of you have used one of these softwares? Perfect, great. Okay. So for those of you that have no idea what is Dynamo, or to be more precise, what is visual programming, you can see on this slide that this software has pretty unusual interface. It's based on visual programming and this visual programming language. And this language, which is very important, doesn't require from you any kind of computer science knowledge. So you don't have to be any kind of programmer or anything like that. It's like the idea of visual programming is based on the fact that instead of scripting, so instead of placing code, you're dropping on canvas icons, like you see here on this gray area, and those icons here I will be using like correct nomenclature for this icon. It's a node, okay? And you can connect these nodes with wires, okay? And you connect them logically, so at the end you see a logical sense of your input, of the way how you connect these nodes. It's a little bit like virtual Lego, like Lego blocks. You can construct different complex structure with these blocks, and you don't have to be a construction engineer to use them. This is a little bit more about the interface looked like this. Here you drop on the canvas, you will see how to drop these nodes, and the effect of these nodes. So what they really do, you see in the background, okay, as a graphical representation of what you have input. Important to mention is that you don't create this geometry that you show in the background with your mouse, okay? So it's absolutely, that's why I mentioned at the beginning, like this interface is very unusual. It's very, I would say it's a kind of a hybrid interface, because everything you do through these logical inputs. You don't draw a line with your mouse, but you have to make some command to execute this line, okay? Okay, but why use it? Why should I, learn something which is completely different, which will make my work very different? So, first of all, it accelerates the design process, because because what your design becomes, you're wiring your design. So you're making basically instead of so with Revit till now we've been creating a parametric model, okay? But with Dynamo, what you do, you are creating parametric model, but with a script that stands behind, with a script which you can change at any moment, okay? And this is also, remember this, the first phrase at the beginning, because, so the first sentence. At the moment, Dynamo is integrated with Revit only. But you can expect that within some time, I can't tell how long it will be, that Dynamo will be integrated with other Autodesk products. Okay, so you probably, in some time, you'll get kind of language which will be, what I want to underline, will not require any computation science from your background, but will be operating on different Autodesk software. In this example, you see, and by the way, now I will show you some slides with some practical examples of application of Dynamo. And then after I will show you, this is just a few slides, I will show you live on product how to start learning and how to, we can make together some basic operations, some basic model, some basic, very basic project, okay? Okay, let's go further. Okay, on this example you see, so the example before, sorry, I was maybe too fast. So here on this picture below you see that I have a building done with a traditional process, so so this is also important to understand that Dynamo can become you can apply it not to entire workflow, you can use it in some areas, in some phases of your project. Like on this example you see that here you have this multi-story building done with the traditional tools, like, you know, just a regular Revit model. And here you can see that it got facade with, but this facade is very particular because it's, as you can see, those holes are changing a little bit because of some parameters that they're affecting these facade. Here in the top you can see some complex structures done with Dynamo, but they are all made with it's everything which you see on these two pictures above. It's done with Dynamo, so it's not based on something existing. Okay, here on this example you see some. Another traditional build, like normal project done with the standard tools, standard Revit tools. So you have some walls, some floors, doors, and so on. And one of these nodes that are available in Dynamo is collecting all the information which are included in rooms. Okay, so the names, numbers, but also, what is very important, the boundaries. So you get the polylines of your rooms inserted into the rooms. And then using Dynamo tools, you can create unlimited things with that. Because you can, for example, add and control very easily and very effectively what kind of finishing floors you have in some certain rooms. Like you can search through the name of the rooms and assign the correct finishing floor in that room. By the way, how many of you is using Revit? Not like half. Okay, so this is strictly for Revit users actually for the moment. Okay, and by the way, here in this example you'll see that by extracting the outlines of rooms, you can control the type of floor, but also you can, for example, with Dynamo, you can control that in your rooms, that every room has adequate number of lighting fixtures or adequate number of diffusers. So you can basically, with a very, very easy way, you can create a script which will not take care only about the geometry, but about many other things. Like, is there enough elements in your room, or something like that. Finally, you can also create, here again you can see there are two walls designed in a traditional way, so just with two curves on the floor plan. And I have created a structure for this for these two walls, and the structure is fully parametric, so I can easily control how many those transversal elements and longitudinal elements are there. But also you can see that these the structure it has some colors, because Dynamo has also some tools which will let you to use the color to highlight some important information, like for example that these structural framings signed with red are too long. Okay, so Dynamo is able to put you some color on structural framings of structural elements depending on some parameter which you choose. Okay, and obviously this structure has been created. So in Dynamo creates this so-called wireframe model here on the right hand side, and Revit alone recreates everything, but using standard Revit structure framing elements, which also includes analytical model, which you can later on analyze in applications like robot structure analysis, for example. Okay, another example shows a surface created in some. It can create it in completely different software, like Alias, Fusion, like I don't know, any different Maya, whatever you want. Then this surface, if it's saved as SAT format, can be again taken by Dynamo. Then you can extract, thousands of different information. You can edit this surface. You can modify a little bit, and then what you can see on this example, I have also thicken it. Okay, so basically, I created like a double side of this surface and created a structure inside. Okay, like by structure I mean like structural trusses, which have analytical model, which have some sections and so on. Okay. Finally, this example represents. It's a little bit, I would say, faked. It's not real, but just gives you the idea on where you can use it. And because here on the left-hand side, you'll see a building done with Revit. But if you look closer, you can see that it's a structure of the building with the like representation of pouring sequences on the construction site. Okay, so you have, like, you can see that slab is not just one element, but is divided by the order of how it will be built on the construction site. What Dynamo does is you can, with a very relatively simple procedure, with a relatively simple script, you can stream into your Revit model a data which can be described as 5D. Okay, so you can stream the order of appearance on the construction site. So the order of the sequence of pouring concrete, but also the time of how it will take at the construction site. Okay, so you can, because Revit is, as you know, BIM model, right? And in abbreviation, in the acronym of BIM, the letter I is the most important because you can include information in your model, right? So a part of, I don't know, the volume of the concrete, right? So you know how much concrete will be poured. You can know the order, so which which element will be the first to appear on the construction site. Then you can also include some information like manwork, okay, cost, and so on. And then on the right-hand side, you see the Navisworks software, which represents this building, it represents what's this 5D through a movie, through the animation. So you can imagine that if you speak with the, as an architect, right? If you speak with the investor, and maybe not as an architect, but as someone who works for a construction company, and you want to explain him why some elements are taking longer than the others to be constructed on a field, it's much easier to show it to him through the animation. So he sees how these elements appear, and also he sees the proportions of how much time does it take to, I don't know, to make foundations, and how much time does it take to create the first level of your building. Okay. Okay, so that's all about the PowerPoint. I'm not gonna make you fall asleep with that. I will pass directly to the software, but before I will show you how to use Dynamo, I will also open the homepage of the software so you can know where to get Dynamo from, okay? And that's a very particular software, because as you can see here, you have no Autodesk logo around, okay? You have just Dynamo. That's because it's open source software, open source projects, which means that you can have an access to the source code of each of its elements. Okay, so you can basically understand in 100% how it's, if you are obviously a programmer and you understand programming language, but you have an access to all its resources and all its structure and free access to understand how it works. Okay. And I will just also show you some basics on how this homepage is structured as well. Because since it's also it's important to mention that Dynamo is a very new product. Okay, so you have to also understand that you can experience some instability because it's constantly evolving. You nearly every day, really. I will show you the proof of that. Nearly every day it is updated and receives some patches and some enhancements and so on. So if you open this homepage, dynamobim.org, if you go to download, this page is not really intuitive, but if you scroll down and you hit on View Previous Builds, why Previous Builds? It will get you to the site called dynamobuilds.com, and here you can see that today is the 10th of December, and we already get 3 patches today. Okay, so now you can understand that Autodesk is really like investing a lot of resources into that software, and it's and obviously you can ask why Autodesk is investing resources in a software which is for free. Yeah, Autodesk does it because it's a fabulous way to promote softwares like Revit, and we'll see in the future the other softwares in which it will be incorporated or it will be integrated with. Okay. It's important also to know that if you go to learn, you get lots of videos, so they are very, very valuable. On the first section, in the first section, you'll see the list of around 10 very, very, very basic videos, which will bring you to which will really help you to understand like the very, very basics, how to create a point and how to, create a series of points and so on, or how to create a line or curve, whatever. Finally, if you scroll down further, you get some more advanced tutorials, okay, in which you learn how to place structural elements, in which you learn how to play with colors, how to stream data into your Revit families, and so on. Stream data or extract data, because this is also possible to extract the data from Revit elements, and so on. Okay. If I go a little back here, there is a kind of a blog in which you can read some events around happening around Dynamo. You can see the gallery of what people have done with Dynamo, and so on. You can also have some communities, so you can, if you want to find some problem, you can participate into that forum and then maybe get some answers on your problems. Okay, so I will close the site. I will also close Revit because I will show you something before we run, because as you might know, Dynamo is supposed to run on Revit, but what is pretty unusual is that it also runs alone, without Revit. However, it's not enough that you download Dynamo and install it. You also need to have Revit with the valid license installed on your computer. So it's like, from one hand side, it's a free product, it's an open source product, but it runs only with Revit with a valid license. Okay? So this is how the interface looks. If I go and hit on new, you will see that this is how the interface looks like. Here on your left-hand side, you'll find a long list of available nodes. So these elements, these blocks, these bricks, which you connect with wires, and then you create an effect on your background. Okay. So the pretty unusual thing is that if I go and use mouse, if I want to rotate the background, I have to press escape and then right click of your mouse, or escape and scroll on the mouse, okay? I will explain you a little bit later what are packages and so on. Let's first concentrate on very basic elements that you can find on this list of available nodes. And like the most basic element that you can create, or the most basic element you should to start learning from when you want to start learning Dynamo, is just a point, right? So if I go and say, and type in here on this search bar for point dot by coordinates, or coordinates with 3 inputs. I know that it's already very confusing for you because I have to type in point and then again by and something, and these are the basics that unfortunately you have to learn by your heart, okay? And but you'll find this, it's very well explained in that videos that you'll find on section learn. Okay, why point dot by coordinates and so on. Okay. So if I just drop it on my canvas, as you can see, I can just, if I take my mouse and just scroll out and zoom in and scroll out, I can zoom in to my point by coordinates, and now I can as you can see, I just dropped this icon, but nothing happened, okay? And if you see down here, on the very bottom of my interface, you have a button called Run, which means execute this command. You can also check this out, and you can ask him to execute these automatically. Sometimes you have to like force him, but and now you can see that we have a point, okay? Now if I go and search for, or if I double click on the canvas, and you will see this mysterious code block. Maybe at the end of this presentation I will explain you what that it's like you can. It's a very strong tool, and you can make lots of things with that. But right now, let's concentrate and let's concentrate on the very simple things, and let's type in, let's say, 2, okay? And if I connect 2 with Y, this will move, okay? If I connect this with X, it will also move. Or if I double-click here and I insert 1 and connect X with Y, it will again move 1 in X, on X-axis, and 2 on Y-axis. Okay, but this was, yeah, this is too simple, okay? If I go and say I want to create many points, I want to create a series of points, okay? If you search on the search bar, if you go sequence, it will automatically select you a node called number sequence. And if I drop it on the canvas, you can see immediately there's something wrong with this. And he says that this is also very useful because if something goes wrong in your script, because this is what you do, you can call script. He will tell you, you will see this message showing what is missing, there is something wrong with that, with this node. And if you move your cursor closer to these inputs on the left or outputs on the right, you will see also some tooltip showing you, explaining you what does this input need, okay? What kind of, because it can be either a number, it can be a vector, it can be a line, it can be many things, okay? So you have to be very careful in reading what does it require. So if I go and say I want, maybe I will limit a little bit this, and I will go, I want a sequence of numbers. But as you can see here, if you want to have a sequence, if you want to create a sequence of numbers, you need obviously the first number, okay? How many numbers you want to have in this sequence, and what will be the distance between them, okay? So if I hit here again on my code block and select as a starting point 0, as amount I would say I want 10, and as a step I want 2, okay? This turned gray, and if I hit on the little square on here on the bottom, you can see that it created a list of numbers, okay? And obviously this is 10 numbers from 0 to 9, starting from 0, ending on 18, because I don't know where it will end, right? But I just know that it starts on 0, goes every 2, and ends and has 10 elements, okay? And obviously if I go and change anything here, for example, I will change start from 0 to 3, okay, I'll get this, right? If I change, for example, step from, I don't know, from 2 to 1, okay, I get this. And this is very, I think it's quite intuitive at this stage. Okay, so if I go back to my initial sequence, now I can go and connect. What happens if I connect the sequence of numbers with the x coordinate? Obviously, you can suspect that this something will happen, and I got a sequence of points. All right? And again, since this is all parametric, if I will modify, for example, amount of my points, it will be automatically updated. Okay, so it's wired. Okay, all these icons are connected with each other, and change in one location, one node will provoke some effect on the others. Okay. What you can also do here, you can also go and search for something called slider. Slider means that instead of typing manually some input data, some number, you can get the same, but by moving this zip, this slider left and right. To make it more effective and useful, you can also click here and change the domain of this slider. So you can, so if I hit here and say I want to have a domain from 0 to 10, this means that these numbers, these values here will not be too big, which means that if I connect this with my step, okay, it means that I can control dynamically the distances which are between my points. All right. Just another very simple thing here. If you go for polyline, or in this case it's called polycurve, you can also access these commands. Actually, I'm typing them because I got used to that, but you can obviously go and search them in more manual way if you go to geometry, which is also very useful sometimes, especially if you are searching for some commands which are, maybe you don't know how it could be the name of this command. So probably you can go and say, this is probably under geometry. And if I go and say, I have something like polycurve. Okay, then can go and create polycurve. I can create polycurve by joint curves, but also by points. And if I connect these with that, I already have my polyline passing through these points. My polycurve passing through the points. Okay, but this is simple. Okay, this is something that can be done with AutoCAD much quicker than with Dynamo. Okay, but let's do something different. I will also show you that. Okay, let's get step 1. Start will be -10, and I want 21 elements. Okay, I have kind of a line of points. But what happens if I connect this sequence of points, which are already connected with X, and represents me a number of sequence with 21 elements from -10 to 10, okay? What if I connect it with Y? I get this, okay? Which is kind of intuitive, but not that much. If you go and right-click on, so every node have a possibility to be right-clicked, and if you go and you find this lacing command here, you can, I'm not going to now explain you what's the difference because it will be maybe too advanced for right now, but just if you go and select cross product, you can get this, okay? So I got grid of points. Many points. I don't know even how many of them. Okay, now, if I go and say, I want a circle, you can see that you can easily create a circle, and it asks for center point and the radius, right? So if I connect my grid of points with a center point, it will automatically create a series of circles. Okay, they are intersecting each other because of the radius, which is quite large. But if I go and say I want my radius to be 0 and 5, so half of the unit, you get my circles one beside each other. Okay. Okay, this will also be possible to do with AutoCAD very easily. But now, with a very simple command, I will do something which will be very, very difficult to make in AutoCAD, okay? Now I will create something I will create a point, okay, which will be somewhere close to that area of circles. And this point will somehow affect the radius of the circles in the way that these which will be closer to that point will have smaller radius, and these which will have more distant will have bigger radius, okay? So if again, you can either type in or you can go and say geometry, I want point, I want to create point, I want to create point by coordinates, and I want to have these 3 coordinates x, y, z, okay? And as you can see, he immediately created me this point in the middle, and I will go and say I want 2 sliders, or even more, I want 3 sliders, okay? But before copying them, because I can also Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, I can expand this, and I can say that I want to change, again, the domain of the slider, which means that I can type in here -10 and 10, okay? Which means that I have a domain from -10 to 10, okay? I will copy this 3 times, Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, okay? Connect these coordinates, and you can see, and now look also, you can obviously go and say and press escape, and with the right click on your mouse rotate, but somehow these nodes are, overlapping your design, and then it is also possible to hit on geometry, okay? Then the nodes are becoming a little bit transparent, and without pressing escape, now you can also just with the right click on your mouse, you can rotate this geometry. Okay. Okay, I will go. Maybe I'll come closer to around 0, so we'll see clearly where is our point. What I will do also right now, because what somehow disturbs me are these points which are marking the center of the circle. And what is also possible, if you have too much geometry overlapping, you can also click on your point by coordinates, in this case, right click on it, and you can turn off the preview, which means that I do not delete my points, but I just turn the visibility off. Okay? So I have just my circles, its radius, and my point. Okay? Now I will do the following. I will go and say I want to measure the distance from this point, which is flying somewhere in this space with this magenta color, and each of these centers of circles. So distance between this guy and the grid of points. If you go and search for distance, you can see that you have geometry, actions, distance too. Okay? And if I connect this set of points, okay, which I just turn off the preview, with this point, if you click on this little it's unfortunate that the projector is not really well in focus, so it's not really showing very well. But if I zoom in, you can see that it shows me the list of numbers again, and this list of numbers is that there are distances, okay, between my set of points and my floating point, okay. What will happen if I look, this distance, these values are pretty large, okay? So what happens if I connect this with, if I substitute my single 0,5 with a distance between them? I get this. It's not really visible, what doesn't represent too much, but if you think about maintaining or somehow decreasing these values, so they maintain their proportion, but they become closer to 0, so to 1 or to 0,5. You can imagine that now I can go and click on the code block and type in x divided by 20, for example, which means that if I connect this with this, I get also a list of numbers, but these numbers are much smaller, okay? And the proportions of, obviously, it's a linear, they have been decreased linearly, okay? And now if I go and connect and now you can see that it has been affected, right? So all the circles have been somehow affected by this procedure, actually, by this. So the geometry, the radius has changed based on the distance between this floating point and the radius and the center of these circles. Okay, so but what happens if I go and say I want move my point? Obviously, if I go moving my point, this pattern will be, I will hide it a little bit. Okay. And once I will be moving the point, this will be, everything will update dynamically, okay? So this is already something that would be very time consuming to do in AutoCAD, okay? You have, this is already something that can be called generative design, okay? Because I'm not telling computer what to design or how to design, but I'm telling him where I want to go, okay? I'm not caring about each single circle, okay? Computer does it for me, okay? And here, obviously, you can make much more different things with that, because, for example, let's imagine that I want to somehow, I'm happy with the effect which I see here, okay, here in the proximity to the point, but I would also like to somehow get rid of the fact that these circles are overlapping. And here you can go and search for something called formula. And here we can type in formulas exactly the same that you'll find. How many of you are using Excel, Microsoft Excel? I believe most of you, right? And how many of you are using like the most basic formulas that are available in Excel? I mean, like some of you are, I'm pretty sure they're using. And here exactly the same. I can type in here that I want basically block these values. In the moment they arrive, so if I come closer here, so in the moment they become, so the radius become bigger than 0.5, okay, then they're starting to overlap. But I also can somehow tell the computer that if these circles are starting to overlap, I want to block this fact and tell them to maintain the value of 0.5, which means if, open bracket, x is bigger than 0.5, then 0.5. If not, x So it means that he will be iterating through the list of values, and he will say, okay, if I see that my radius is 0.6, oh, this means that's bigger than 0.5, so I have to be returned to 0.5. If it's smaller, then it will leave the value like it was before. So if I connect this and this, I get this, okay? And obviously, still, if I zoom out a little bit, and obviously if I continue to move amongst X and Y, okay, it will affect my design. But now I want to do one more thing. I want to save it, by the way, and you can see that you can save your script on the desktop, and Dynamo has its own format. It's called DIN, and I will call it pattern. I will save it. I will close it. Now we will run Dynamo. Run Revit, and then Dynamo on top of it. All right. I will start with the default metric template. All right. I will go and say adds in. This is where where you can find Dynamo once you install it, but with the latest 2015 release of Revit, you will find it automatically there anyways. It's being installed automatically. If you don't have Revit, you can also run Dynamo on a software called Vasari. You can find it on, maybe you've heard about it. It's a pure modeler taken out from Revit, so it doesn't have those, just this conceptual modeling. I go for you can see here I see my recent scripts. Okay. Here it's nothing yet. Okay. I will go and say F5, so it will execute my my design. These are here I can find the list of my circles. So as you can see, we have passed from, we started with a the sequence of numbers, we have created points, and then we have created circles, okay? So this is how you proceed in Dynamo. So you first one thing, and then you so you don't cancel, you don't delete the previous thing, but somehow it works a little bit like a tree that grows, and you have different branches of this tree, always all together connected with the initial step. Okay, and here what can be done is I will go and search for something called. Now I want to extrude these circles. I want to create a list of design made of those circles extruded. But obviously I want to somehow control also not only the fact that these circles will be extruded, but also the fact that they will have different height of extrusion. Okay, so they will be pulled in a different. They will have different height, and obviously what can also be perfectly controlled is, like, if you think about extrusion, you imagine that you're taking closed loop, right? You pull it up and you have a solid, okay? But you can imagine what will happen if I pull it, but not directly up, but for example like this. There's also something that can be very easily done in here in Dynamo, because what I will search for right now is extrusion or extrude, and now you can see that there are many different methods you can use to extrude closed loop. One of them is extrude as solid, but as you can see I have some 3 inputs here. I have a curve, I have a direction, and I have a distance. Okay? So, as you can suspect, my curve will be, so the circle will be the curve that will be extruded. So I'm going to connect this with curve. Direction is a little bit different. It's a little bit new for you now, because this is, if you come closer and if you activate the tooltip, you can read that he needs a vector, okay? You don't need to be a physician to know what is a vector. Just if Dynamo asks for vector, just type in vector. Let's see what we'll find. Okay, geometry vector create. Perfect, by coordinates. So for the moment, obviously I want to extrude my my circles into the along the Z. Okay, I wanted them be straight ahead. Not straight ahead, it's like straight. Okay, perfectly vertical. So if I double click on the canvas, I type in 1, so it's okay for him that my vector will be long 1. So this is direction. And now I will use, obviously if I go and say I want distance 1, that's not funny because it will be just plain. It will be something like that. Run. Okay? Nothing special. But if I go and say, okay, I want that these circles will be extruded by, I'm not going to even use this. I'm going to use directly this big number which results from the distance between the grid of points and the floating point. So if I connect this with this and hit run, I checked it out on purpose because if there are too many commands to execute, Dynamo can go and tilt and can crash very easily. So if you do some very basic stuff, some very basic operations, you can leave it on. But if you do some more complex geometry, I recommend you to turn it off. If I hit run, I get this. All right? So if I highlight my geometry, you can see that this is our geometry. This is the effect of our script. And again, this is generative design. I'm not telling him what to do. I'm not telling him, take me this circle, extrude, I don't know, 1,5. This guy, 1,6. I'm just telling him, extrude it, but do it in this way, okay? Go in that direction. But it can be done more here because we already have these inputs, and if I go and say, okay, this is my vector, and it says I want, it goes just 1 in the up. If I go and double click here, I can say, okay, I want to also have that he goes 0,5 in y direction. And now it's a little bit twisted, okay? So if you go and look on the top from that, you have something like twisted figure, okay? But, okay, now we have this solid, strange solid in Dynamo, but I want to have it in Revit. I want to really use it to somehow, apply it in my design. Apply as a base for further, documentation production, for example, okay? So if we go and search for a tool for a node called import, you can, by the way, see that you can create your design based or create your script or create, crazy things based on CSV file. from SAT file, which I already showed you at the beginning, at the beginning of the presentation. But I can also create it, and if you can see that it's under Revit, Elements, Import Instance, Create by Geometry. So if I use this node and connect it and hit run, maybe I will have to wait a little bit. But what will happen is that I will get this in Revit. Yeah. Obviously, this is something that, as you can see, this is not really a Revit native geometry. It's a SAT file recreated inside Revit, and but the reason why it's not recreating this native Revit geometry is that with Dynamo you can create NURBS, Bezier curves and surfaces, and with and Revit just from the technical point of view, in some cases will not resist such complex geometry. It will be just too difficult for him, and that's why if you're working in Revit environment, all the geometry created in Dynamo will be transferred in a project environment as SAT. However, if you go and open conceptual mass, okay, and I will execute my command here in this environment, in so-called mass environment in Revit. So now you can see that in this case, this is grayed out. That means that it went in tilt, so I have to save it. It doesn't happen, like it happens very rarely that it crashes and then you lose your job. It's rather that he just grayed out and you still can save, but what you have to do is just turn it off, go back, add in, Dynamo, pattern, run, let's wait a little bit. Okay. And what happens is that you can, if this geometry, because obviously this cylinder is not really, I would say, complicated even for Revit. But what you can do here, you can explode this element, and then if the geometry permits, it will convert it automatically into the Revit native geometry. Okay, so you can explode some of them. I'm not going to explode all of them. Okay, and then if you load it into the project, okay. The funny thing is that these elements that have been exploded, like these cylinders on the edge, can be also, I can go and say I want architectural wall and I want to build this wall based on this either solid or the surface or anything, right? If you have created very complex geometry, it will just, if you explode it, it will just disappear. So this is only one way to test if Revit will accept the geometry created, complex geometry created in Dynamo. All right, So this is the first part of this presentation. Do you have any questions, or do you find it useful, or do you think it's can be I don't know? Do you find it interesting, or do you think you will learn it? More or less, okay. Because, yeah?
What if you update the Dynamo file, but you won't update this one?
So, if I open Dynamo and run it again, he will create again SAT file in that place, okay? So the procedure would be I recreate SAT geometry, I delete my mass, okay? I reload it into the project, and then I have to again place the walls. So far it's not possible, right? But this is only one. You have to explode it, unfortunately. Okay, so if there are no more questions, since we are already very, very late, I will pass to these examples that the more practical examples that you have seen at the beginning, and I will show you how to, maybe not so explicitly like here, so I was telling you how to use every node and so on, but I can show you what can be achieved. So once you invest your time and learn Dynamo, how can you benefit out of it, okay, on really like real projects. So I'm going to close it. Okay. I will open the first example that you have seen, which is, by the way, how much time do we have? So we have 1 hour approximately, right? But how much time do we have still? Like 40 minutes, I believe, right? Without break. I know, it's a Central European time. So it's okay. We are supposed to end at 5:45. Okay, so it means that so it means it's 6. So it means that I have like around 40 minutes, right? Approximately. I was supposed to finish already right now, but let me show you some examples. Yeah, they kick me out. I'll finish. Yeah. Unless you will save them as either Excel file, so the numbers, okay? So the values of, so your results expressed in numbers, so in values, or so it can be in an Excel, it can be CSV, those two formats basically, or TXT as well, okay? But like what you intend is this colorful map, right? If you come closer, if you dig into Revit, you can see that it has its own tools to solar analysis. So you can basically extract some data from sun, and you can measure how much. I'm not going to speak it because it's a little bit too advanced, but it is possible to do it in Dynamo alone. Okay. So I will open. Yeah. Animated. What do you mean by that? You could try to do that with, not in Dynamo alone, because you will have to execute, like you execute the command, okay, and it's at the end. It doesn't have like loops, okay. You could, since it's open source product, probably there are already looping tools which will make everything in loop repeatedly, but it's not a standard Dynamo tool, okay? Okay, I will open this building. For the security, I will close and run it again, because you can never know what happened. And I will run a new file because, and then I will open, so you can see I will show you the basics here, but then I will show you what can be achieved if you have more input here. I'm going to close the properties in the project browser because it's not. So what can be done? So this example will be very much like everyday practical work. Okay. So what can be done here? I'm going to search for a node which is called select, and you can. This is a really great thing because you can select an edge, or you can select a face, or you can select elements existing in your Revit environment and then extract either, I'm not speaking right now about the BIM data, so the parameters, but you can extract its geometry, which means faces, edges, points, and so on. Okay? So if I go and say, I want to select edge, and I want to select this edge, okay? And if I go and hit N5 and zoom out, you can see that he already recognized that I have selected that edge, and he converted the edge into the line within Dynamo, okay? So if I go back to my nodes and start copying it, okay? So I'm going to select this, which means that I already have a little bit bigger, okay? Now let's say I want to copy it, and I will select, let's say, this guy and this guy, and copy it down again, and I'm going to select this edge and this edge. Okay? Which means that I have already at least 3 of these edges selected in my in Dynamo. Okay? So and now I have 6 different nodes, okay, and they represent 6 different lines. So if I go and say I want list.create, okay, which means that I will take these nodes and they will become one node, okay? This node will do the same. And this node will do the same, okay? So this is my first, second, and third line, okay? Now I will also create I will use offset, curve actions offset, and I will a little bit offset this middle curve taken from the edge of existing slab, existing floor. I'll take curve, so this is my curve, this is the distance, that's distance by 2, okay? And you can see sometimes, yeah, with Dynamo you have these kind of surprises, because what I have to do right now, before I offset it, I should to go and say that I want to create a polycurve out of the lines. So it means that I want to polycurve, create by joint curves. So this is my polycurve. This is my polycurve. Okay, and now if I zoom in and connect this guy with this guy and hit run, it will either outside or inside will be offsetted, okay? I'll do the same with the bottom one. Okay, so I have 3 of them here. What I will do now, I will again use list create tool, list create, okay, and I will again make 3 inputs and take this guy, this guy, this guy. So I have them in one piece. And also the order is important because I have taken first this one, and this one. And now I can create a loft. You create loft by cross sections, okay? So these are my curves. This is my loft, okay? And you can import your loft to Revit. Okay? And if I will start to modify my offset from 0 to let's say 0.5, it will be pumping up, right? So if I go and say, okay, I want 0, I get this, right? Okay, this is something very, very simple, but I will go and open another one, which is, I already saved something for you, called panels. Sometimes, if you make something much more advanced and much more complicated, right, your script can become a little bit like this, a little bit like spaghetti. Okay, so you have different, commands going in different direction and so on. But the most important thing is that you see these blocks, you see those nodes, not a code, okay, but you see these little bricks that you can modify very easily and very easily recognize what do they mean, what stands behind, okay? So what will happen here is I will do very similar thing like before. So I will rotate my building, I will select edge, okay, and I will copy it 1, okay, and here, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. I'm not gonna take anything in the middle, I'm gonna use the edges of the upper, of the last, and the first slab. So it means that I will take this, 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 and this, 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 this one, and this one. Okay. Here is happening lots of things. I'm gonna bother you with that because you're gonna fall asleep. But more or less, at the first, I get this. Okay, so I get surface which is smooth. Okay, it's not divided by. So it's one single surface, which is also pretty difficult to get in Revit if you work with that software, right? So imagine in Revit, if you think about the sphere is made of the 2 calottes in Revit. Here you can make sphere, which is a sphere, mathematical representation, right? What will happen next? I'm going to create I have divided this surface into the areas where I will put panels, but if you come closer, and I will maybe turn off the surface, you can see that this division is alternatively changing. So you have one number of panels on one floor, a different on the second, and so on, so on, so on, okay? The next thing that will happen here, so maybe I will turn it on. So the next things that will happen is, as you can see here, I have used some nodes, but I'm not gonna now get too much in detail. But anyways, I'm gonna use adaptive component, and I have made the series of procedures which will drop adaptive component based on 4 points as a single panel, okay? So I will go and connect this and this. Okay. Okay, I will disconnect this because it will create too many things at one place. It will not take too much. And obviously now these panels will have some special attributes as well. For example, they will change colors and the radius of the hole inside. They have little hole, and this hole will be affected by different things that happen in environment that will happen around. So this example that first example that you already have seen something very similar. Okay, just look at this. Okay, it was always so really. If you think about this Revit standard tools, to create such facade, it is kind of very time consuming because you cannot, if you think about Revit standard tools, you cannot have something that is not repetitive, okay? Either you can select your surface, you can decide on what kind of pattern you will have, but you're not allowed to have some unique variations inside that pattern, okay? With Dynamo, you can do anything you want. So what I will do, I will measure the distance between, here we should have, I hope, yeah, here. I have a little sphere floating in the air, so something similar that you've seen before. And I'm gonna measure the distance between each panel and this, the sphere. And what will happen in Dynamo is that I'm gonna use this. Wait a moment. There is a element set parameter by name. So I am connecting this node with existing already, with panels which already have been placed. I'm just typing R because if I click on my panel, you can see that it has, I have created a parameter called R, okay? And this parameter R will be changed by some value. And again, this is, whoa, sorry. And this is something that happens here. But again, I'm going to step into the details because, so let's see the effect. Let's have a look on how it will work. So these are my elements. This is my value. Okay, and I'm measuring the location. So family instance location is the distance from the sphere. Yeah, I'm selected, select model element. I have selected the sphere, and he's measuring me the distance between the sphere and the panels. Hit run. There is something wrong. Wait a second. Location, that's fine. R, value, what's happening? because I have to connect this guy. This one. Value. Okay. Okay, and you can see here on the back, on the left, sorry, that this sphere have been, it's basically opening these panels, so it's affecting the design of my facade, okay? So if I go and say I want to move it, let's move it here, okay? And I hit run. It will open these panels on that side, okay? Okay, but I can do more because I can go and say I want also some color here. So these panels will change their color based on here. Okay, based on the distance again. So those which are more distant are getting yellow. Those which have this opening closed, basically, so that this hole is very small, then these panels are getting blue, all right? Okay, but this is a little bit more, this is a little bit about pure design, okay, of the facade, but what about if so this building is, if I go to manage, location, you can see that this building is somewhere, right? So it's precisely in Istanbul, okay? And this is sun, okay? And the sun is on 28th of April at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So what I can do, I can now disconnect this value and disconnect this value, and I can go down here because here I have, wait a second. So these are my values, and these are my other values, my color. Okay, hit F5. What I have to do, I also have to disconnect this, because they will. Okay. There are too many scripts running at the same time, so that's why he's not really responding very quickly, and also my resolution is pretty crap. But you can believe me on that. Also, you can design facade in the way that they will, for example, they will close, or they will, these panels will create some shading in the moments when the facade receives the biggest amount of radiation, okay? Okay, so let's maybe leave this example for a moment, because it's some mess here right now, and I don't want to lose the time to get it on track. So I will close it for a moment. All right. And I will open another example that you just have seen before. So this one. Okay. Just standard regular building. I run Dynamo again. And I will open rooms script. Okay, here you have a, and obviously if I go and open on properties and browser and I open the first level of my project, you can see that it has some conference room, some toilet for men, some toilet for women, corridor, an office, office 1, office 2, all right? So what it will do, and by the way, as you can notice, this one, this node has something like it's lying behind, which means that this node has been, as I told at the beginning, this is open source project and community. So it means that you can, so there are many people that are contributing and expanding capabilities of Dynamo, and they are, just adding their work to the list of available nodes. And this node is called Lunchbox, and Lunchbox, entire set of different tools have been added by someone which have created it on its own and just contributed to the community of Dynamo, okay? And if I just drop it on canvas and if I just hit F5 or hit run, you can see that it has extracted me some the boundaries of each room, okay? And what you can see here with the node called watch is that he also reads the names of each room. What is also very important in this moment is that I know that conference room has, so imagine that I have a big building and I have 100 different rooms, okay? And if I want to automatically iterate or select amongst them, I need to tell the computer or tell the Dynamo how that I want conference and not a corridor, okay? And to do that, I'm using these numbers at the beginning because as you probably noticed before, every element on the list has its position named by index, this index in the squared brackets, okay? So if I want to select a conference, for example, conference room, I have to, and you have a tool for that, which is a node for that, which is called get item at index, which means just I have a list of elements, right? Boundaries. And if I select, I want to element with the index 0 from this list. Okay, wait, I will expand it a little bit more. Okay. So I have this, and conference is 0, and if I have F5, obviously he will select the rectangle which belongs to the conference. Okay, this is the way how you iterate and how you select amongst the elements, which are very often very, very, very long lists and so on. In this example, you can see that I am selecting boundaries signed with index 0, 4, and 5. So I want conference, I want office 1 and office 2. All right? So these are my bounds. This is the list. This is my get item at index. I'm not going to now explain what's happening here because it will just maybe confuse you even more. What I will do, I will hit F5 and you can see that what I did here is that I have created some curve which is offsetting inside the room, okay? What I will do now, as you can see, you can create a floor, okay? Floor by outline. And to have a floor, so to create a floor with Dynamo, normally how you create a floor, you create by sketching its boundaries, right? But here you can help yourself a lot, especially if you want to control, for example, you have 100 rooms or you have I don't know, 50 toilets, and you want to make sure that in every toilet you have the same material on the floor, okay? And what you have to do, you have to just say the outline, so the curves defining the floor, the type of floors, okay? Once you use this, once you open your Revit template file, once you use this node, it will also look into your template file, and it will see that you will see the list of available floors that you have in your template file, in your starting file. Okay. So what I will do here, I have to connect this with this, and also this. Okay. And what will happen is that he have created me these floors, okay, the finishing layer of the floor. And what is also very useful is that since I do not want that these floors are overlapping, okay, I can use the node which is called get parameter value bar name, and I'm reading what is the thickness of my floor. And then if I know what's the thickness, this means that I can take my floor, my new floor, set parameter by name, and I can get height offset from level. Okay, so if you go and properties, yeah, this is my floor, and I know that it reads the thickness, and right, so here he read the thickness of floor, and here he set the highest height offset from level. Okay, so also with this I can be sure that my walls have correct offset. My columns have always the same offset, either top offset or bottom offset. My floors, my finishing layers are always, are not overlapping with existing structural floors, but they are always on the correct quota. Okay, I don't have to worry. I don't have to check it, double check, and so on. And obviously, this is parametric, so if I want to, make this offset a little bit smaller or bigger, it is updating the model automatically. If I want to change this, maybe add another, maybe I'm going to use the same material for toilet for men. Okay, it just appears. If I want, change 3 to 4, it automatically updates the model. Very responsive and very quick. What can happen next is, here I will create another offset, right? And wait, because the offset is, let's return to the original. So it was 0, 3, and 4, and 5. All right. And what would happen is that I can now, again, use the same boundary of the room for, I have offsetted them, I have divide this curve, equally, okay? And now I can also use the node which is called family instance by point. So take the family instance. It can be a diffuser, it can be a lighting fixture, it can be anything you can imagine. And then I can just place it onto the point, okay? So now you can see that I have this room with lighting fixtures placed with a certain distance, on a certain level, so the certain height from the floor, and obviously certain offset from the walls. Okay, so you can really make a lot of things with that. Another example you can do with maybe not with rooms, but this is I'm using the same the same project on that. So the same model for this demonstration. So I will close this script. This is what I said. This is alpha version. You know, Dynamo is not even beta. It's still evolving. So you can encounter such. Doesn't happen that often, honestly. Sometimes, once a day. Okay, so I open the rooms. I will go and I think we are running out of the time, right? So this is the last thing, and we close. So in this example, again, I'm measuring some locations, so some distance, and here, for example, you can see that Dynamo have recognized the walls that belong to the project. Okay, he found a center point of each wall. That's why he converted the curvy wall into the somehow a cube. And what it does right now is, again, he's putting a color based on the distance between this point and the walls. This is obviously, again, just a very simple example, right? But you can imagine that you can mark your project with, you can use the color in your project, for example, to sign, if you imagine that you have a sprinkler, okay, and this sprinkler will have to arrive, so anti-fire and fire protection system, right, and this sprinkler has to have some certain range, okay, and you can see with the color if the entire so if all the rooms, so all the spaces in your projects receive the adequate range of the sprinkler. So if the fire protection is correctly designed in your project. But just very simple example, and just for you to let you know that such tools exist, and you can use them on many different examples. Okay, I think we have to end up because it's out of time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you liked it, and you haven't fallen asleep. That's at least some of you. Yeah, thank you for your attention.